Now that we've gotten the prequels over with, it feels good. It feels good to be able to go back to films that truly were the galaxy far, far away. It's astonishing to think that the first Star Wars film came out in May 1977, more than 40 years ago. Because taking in all of what it took to get to this level, and everything that has spawned in turn because of it, Star Wars might be, in my eyes, and maybe many others, one of, if not the most important film ever made. Sure, you can make all these arguments for revolutionary films like Gone with the Wind or Ben-Hur, but in my eyes, a vital element in the making of a masterpiece is its ability to inspire the imagination. I'd say before this point, Wizard of Oz was the movie most able to accomplish this. It swept us into an entirely foreign landscape as children. And Stanley Kubrick's 2001: A Space Odyssey was also a major stepping stone in producing the visuals that Star Wars would perfect. But despite all that, Star Wars has influenced so much in how films are made today and what a movie can accomplish. A film where serious drama of two people having a discussion or a historical epic can impress all they want in terms of objective quality, but to capture the viewer in an entirely foreign reality, to immerse oneself into the wonder of what the medium of film can accomplish. Because in my eyes, escapism is the main reason we go to movies. We want to leap out of the humdrum world with all its problems that we are currently forced to inhabit, and go somewhere different, with characters that fascinated us and we can relate to. Stories that forever become connected to our minds. Heroes, villains, visuals. Sure, movies that vie for an Oscar can be great. I'm not trying to put what those can accomplish. But the care and passion that are put into movies like Star Wars, where creativity and ingenuity shine off every single frame. Star Wars is the film that set into motion the incredible cinematic accomplishments of today. Would Peter Jackson have been able to film a 12-hour epic fantasy if it wasn't for Star Wars? Would Kevin Feige have been able to orchestrate a stunning 17-film franchise where all the films tie into one another? How about the accelerated takeover of nerd and geeky fandom? You may think that's becoming overly cynical and commercialized today, as Red Letter Media has put it, and to good reason, but there's still a genuine love and devotion that is in the heart of every fan, however deep it may reside, that started with this movie. I still remember the day when I was 5, my dad coming home from work and having stopped on the library on the way to pick up the VHS of a certain film that he thought his sons might enjoy. I think that's where my passionate love of escapist media began. And true, not everyone has had that experience. There are thousands of children with neglectful parents who never thought to show them the key to starting the journey. A key that is a masterpiece. Of course, you can argue all the films that this film might technically have. There might be a bizarre switch of accent.
I recognized your foul stench when I was brought on board.
A lame piece of dialogue, a slow moving scene. But Star Wars: A New Hope is like a test taken by an honor student. Even though they did miss a few questions, they got all the bonuses right. And sometimes those bonuses can completely override the problems, however legitimate they might be in other movies, down to tiny little nitpicks that you can and should completely ignore. For every line that doesn't work, you're going to have 10 lines that are classics and are quoted non-stop by fans and regular folk alike. For every slightly slow story beat, the pacing will pick up right afterwards. And even then, I wouldn't go without the film's problems for the life of me. They are an essential part of the Star Wars experience. The aesthetic just gives a lot to the look. I just love, despite the CGI added later to the special editions, how this film looks so gritty, so genuinely used. The scene inside the Jawa Sandcrawler, where we get to see all the designs for the droids, where they look so beat up and real, is amazing. I love that one of them is basically 2 trash cans glued together and given legs. There's just something that feels more human and real than most of the characters in the prequels. The set design and location shooting also adds immensely to the realism. I don't exactly know how everyone else feels, but everything in this movie, which was the original, is so incredibly organic that despite anything that could be possibly interpreted as cheesy, it just doesn't matter to me, because it works so well for what the film is going for. The ships look like they are used in this universe. They aren't sleek and trying to look cool. They're clunky, lopsided, and rusty. The makeup and puppetry is also fantastic. Just look at the Cantina Band scene alone. Each creature has something unique to its design, whether it be hilarious or bizarre. The story is perfect. It does exactly what it needs to do to keep a viewer hooked on every single second. Even if I have to go to a bathroom when I'm watching this movie, I almost want to hold it. And I'm not being in a theater. I'm at home with a remote that can pause it right beside me in a second. But there's a sense of magic to the pace of it that just compels me immeasurably. This movie just keeps going. The opening scroll is gripping and gets you into a mood. It's not about politics and trade disputes. It's about rebellion, war, which is brilliant. And we get that first shot of the Titanic Star Destroyer closing in on the tiny rebel ship. It just adds to it by visually demonstrating everything we need to know. The only time where things slow down is on the time on Tatooine where the droids land and we are introduced to Luke before Obi-Wan comes to the picture. But even then, the dialogue is rich, the interactions amusing, and the visuals are breathtaking. Characters are the real power of this movie, though. They make this film so rich and vibrant, from all the protagonists all the way down to that stormtroopers bumping his head. They are icons in my eyes. Darth Vader is legit one of the greatest enemies in cinematic history. From his costume design, to his voice brilliantly executed by James Earl Jones, to the visual acting by David Prowse, to the sound design, all of it is essential in the brilliant power of his screen presence. And when you think about it, how perfect he is here,
I find your lack of faith disturbing.
it's stunning when you go to the sequels and see that he somehow even gets better. Tarkin is also a cool screen presence. It's fascinating that however terrifying Darth Vader might be, there's somehow an ordinary guy who can control him. Glad that he got blown up, because that thought is almost scarier. Obi-Wan has so much given to him by Alec Guinness. For a first-time viewer, he may just seem like your typical wise mentor fantasy figure, but that's because he's one of the main archetypes that so many other things take from it. Obi-Wan is awesome, and he has all the best lines, too.
It surrounds us, it penetrates us, it binds the galaxy together. Who's the more foolish, the fool or the fool who follows it? Only a master of evil, Darth. If you strike me down, I shall become more powerful than you can possibly imagine.
Princess Leia was many people's first exposure to a badass female lead. There's not much to gushing about Rey being a strong girl power character in the current trilogy, because Leia was kicking all of the ass 40 years previously. It's actually a pretty brilliant subversion of the damsel in distress trope, because she gets captured for the good of the stolen data, while in captivity she's constantly firing back at her prisoner, and when Han and Luke rescue her, she's more instrumental in getting out of the Death Star than they are. In short, Leia is perfect in her character. She's flawed, but she uses those flaws to become an even greater pillar of strength. This is the first time I've watched this movie since Carrie Fisher passed away in December 2016. And it both hurt, and it was incredible to see her again. Honestly, it made me tear up, but in a bittersweet fashion. What she did for the role of women in film will never be forgotten. Neither will those cinnamon buns. Han is the character that's top on everyone's list. He's the cool guy that's overconfident in everything, even if he's terrible at it. So I'd be remiss not to mention how much Harrison Ford brings to the role.
Everything's under control, situation normal.
What happened?
Had a slight weapons malfunction, but everything's perfectly all right now. We're fine, we're all fine here now, thank you. How are you?
The special edition really messed him up because his arc has changed so slightly, but it's pretty significant. That cold-blooded murder of Greedo shows who he is on the beginning of his path, and when we see him help Luke out, that's where he's evolved to. And who doesn't love Chewie? He should have gotten a medal too. But my favorite character, not just in this film, but the entire saga, and the true heart and soul of the original Star Wars trilogy, is Luke Skywalker. His arc in here is basically the essential hero's journey through and through. But for Luke, George Lucas took the hero's journey and defined it for an entire generation, and basically every generation to follow. I honestly think Mark Hamill is underrated in his performance as Luke, even in the first one. True, he's clunky at times, but it works for the character, and some of his visual acting is the most powerful in the entire film. That look he gives the corpses of his dead aunt and uncle, the grief after one glance, transforms into determination. That's the definitive moment where his journey starts, and even before that, we're showed his aspirations. The binary sunset is one of the most powerful shots in cinematic history, if not the most powerful. We understand his hopes and dreams in one simple, genius masterpiece of a visual. His story continues to grip me all the way due to his relatability. After the post-Force Awakens Rey debacle, so many people jumped on this to argue, Luke is a Gary Stu, which just shows that they are too infinitely stupid to understand one of the most infinitely stupid terms in fandom. Luke sucks, and it's great. He's constantly having to be saved by Han, Ben Kenobi, and even when he goes to rescue the princess, she saves him more than he does her. He's bumbling about the entirety of the film, so in that epic final moment where he completes his arc and blows up the Death Star, an immeasurable feat, you feel that accomplishment. It's his first big victory in the film, and if he had been a big badass throughout the rest of the film, it just wouldn't have felt as rewarding, this intensely epic moment that sets him on the path of the Jedi. Characters may be a great element, but there's one final piece in the masterwork. The golden thread that ties the pieces of cloth together. And that is John Williams' epic score. This film would be so much less without the themes that he brilliantly composed. From the beginning with the opening title to the amazing throne room music. It's all perfect. Star Wars A New Hope gets an 11 out of 10. Thank you so much for watching. Next time, a certain empire is striking back on my next review. So get excited. Please comment, like, and subscribe if you feel sufficiently inclined.